I'm in prison for a home invasion, murder, robbery. I was hustling. I was a hustler. I used to sell weed. So we committed this robbery. During the course of the robbery, somebody died, and ultimately I was found guilty and sentenced to life without parole plus 19 years, 4 months.
Thank you for being in between the lines with us. It's so nice to meet you, Brett May.
Nice
I
to
just
meet
want
you.
to spend this time to get to know you and to know your journey and to see how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. You guys brought a great energy out here to Calipatria. It's not very often that we get opportunities like this to, feel free for the day. So I'm feeling free.
And hopefully your team will win. And it'll be even better at the end of the day.
It was looking good for the home team before I came in here.
Why weren't you playing today?
I don't even want to make excuses, but I got a little injury, so.
Okay, we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide.
I appreciate that.
Well, Brett, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
So I'm 43 years old. I'm from Riverside, California.
Okay, 43 years old. Wow,
43.
you look like you're 23. You look really nice for 43 years old.
Sometimes they say incarceration is like the fountain of youth. You know?
Do?
Yeah. Well preserved.
Well preserved.
If you don't stress too much, you can preserve yourself pretty well.
And so you grew up in Riverside.
I did.
And how was that for you? How was your
My upbringing?
Mm-hmm.
So my upbringing, it was kind of confusing, I had a pretty, what they would call a nuclear family, being out here and having, this community and sharing stories with so many of my brothers, I know I was privileged to grow up with both my parents in the household, but then, it was one of them volatile situations in the household, so being young and not being able to interpret those things, it was kind of confusing.
In what sense volatile?
Volatile in the sense of, now I understand it as a married man. I understand that, they were just two humans in a relationship, you know what I mean? My parents, we look at our parents like,
The God.
yeah, exactly, and they're supposed to have it all figured out, but they were just two people figuring it out, just like, anybody else.
So that was part of your childhood, was observing them fighting, and did that affect you, or why did you bring that up?
Yeah, so I brought it up in terms of confusion, right? So like being young, trying to navigate the world and kind of seeing the two people that you look to for guidance, an example, kind of having the trouble figuring it out themselves, it was kind of, confusing trying to figure it out. I spent a lot of my childhood living in my head,
Right. And what did you do as a child to kind of get out of your head and be present? Like, were you into sports? Did you, like, how did that look?
Well, unfortunately for me, how I got out of my head was I found external validation within the gang culture. I gravitated towards the gang relatively early, and it seems like when you gravitate into that culture right there, some of the things that the insecurities and the shames and stuff that you might deal with inside the household, it's not held against you amongst the homies, Amongst the homies, they don't hold that against you.
Was your family part of, like, were you affiliated at all and part of a gang, or was this just your own individual doing?
No, so my family wasn't part of a gang. I kind of got introduced into that lifestyle through my big bro, but he's out there actually living very successfully. I was the one who I deviated.
Your actual brother?
My big bro, yeah.
And how old were you when you started that life?
That transition? So I started hanging out maybe when I was about 12, 13 years old, but I actually became a gang member at the age of 15.
How does somebody get, like, brought into a gang? I'm curious how that works.
Right, so I looked up to my big bro. He was like a hero to me, you know what I mean? So the times when he would take me, to hang out with the older crowd, which his homies at the time were gang members, I kind of followed that lead. Anything that he did, I was trying to emulate it, I remember my big bro, he used to always be on me like, man, stop biting my style. But I was looking for that direction, I was looking for that guidance, and I found it through him. So the introduction to the gang actually came through my big brother, and that's how I kind of got involved.
And that was at the age of, you said 12?
So 12, 13, I was hanging out. 15 years old, I was officially a gang member.
And how do you become an official gang member?
Get put on. It's one of those things where They court you on. A few people test your heart by you fight 2-3 people at one time, and that's how you officially get put on.
Really? Within the game?
Within the game.
Okay, so it's like an initiation into
It's
the
like
game.
an initiation, exactly.
And then you're in.
You're in.
And now you have a team of brothers that are like having your back and you guys do things together.
Exactly.
And there's like a protocol.
For sure.
Okay, and how long were you in this for?
I mean, I was a gang member all the way until, all through my prison life up until about 2016 when I officially stepped away. Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about your journey of the reason you got into prison in the first place?
Okay. So I'm in prison for a home invasion murder robbery. So May 1st, 2001 was the day that my crime was committed. I was a non-shooter in the crime. I became a father at 17. That I would say that was a contributing factor. Trying to figure it out. Me and my baby's mom at the time, we were just trying to figure it out. I was hustling. I was a hustler. I used to sell weed. I had an opportunity to participate in this robbery to get weed, and that's what I did. So we committed this robbery. During the course of the robbery, somebody died, and ultimately I was found guilty and sentenced to life without parole plus 19 years, 4 months. And I was 19 at the time of my crime, 20 when I was arrested.
How was that moment for you?
Man, it was like the ground completely coming from under your feet. You know what I mean? You're involved in a lifestyle where you got to be strong, where you're trying to be tough, where you got heart. So I came into this system trying to prove myself strong, but internally, it was, it's life without parole. Essentially what that means is death by incarceration. Life without parole means that, unlike, your 25 to life or 15 to life counterparts who have an opportunity to go to the board at some point, you come into the system knowing that the only way you're gonna go out is in a bag, So that was heavy.
And you were a dad.
And I was a dad.
And you're so young, you had your whole life ahead of you. So
Absolutely.
What was that like coming in? And it wasn't something, you weren't in and out before that.
No, this was actually my first crime. First commitment. No juvenile history whatsoever. First crime, immediately get the biggest penalty that you can get short of the death penalty. And
so you had remorse at the beginning. Like you weren't like angry about it. You're kind of already like, okay, well, this is.
I'm not gonna say I had remorse at the beginning. In the beginning, I knew that, from the time that bullet went off in that room and I saw somebody die in front of my eyes, I knew like life was gonna change forever. I knew that. Unfortunately, especially being the fact that I wasn't the actual trigger man, I was able to put a little distance between myself and the actual act, if that makes any sense. Kind of like in terms of not being able to take full responsibility. I was...
Right. You're like, oh, I didn't do it.
Yeah, I justified it in saying that, well, I wasn't the actual shooter, but I was one of the ones who was instrumental in getting the whole thing started. So essentially, like, if it wasn't for me, it never wouldn't have happened. So I hold myself fully responsible, fully accountable now. But at the time, remorse, I wouldn't say I was remorseful in the beginning. I felt bad for what I'd done. I knew that what I had done was wrong, but I was so focused on coming to prison and living up to this reputation that I had created for myself that remorse wasn't something that came. Remorse came with responsibility, and that came later.
And what was your reputation that you were trying to uphold?
My reputation at the time was that I was with it, that I was down. Anything going on, I'm with it, At that point in time, I would have done anything, including kill, for my neighborhood. So that's what the reputation was.
And now that's in hindsight, when you say that you would do anything for your neighborhood, how do you feel about that now, those words now? Even kill, you said. Like, how does that make you feel? Like, is your neighborhood, would they do anything for you?
No, it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel sad because, the lifestyle that I live now, I try to be the example for, the example that somebody like me needed at that time. You're young, you're going through whatever you're going through internally, and you start looking for external validation, right? And when something like that comes, you gravitate towards it, you know? I'm pretty sure everybody knows what it feels like to vie for acceptance, you know? We're all humans. We all want to be accepted in our social circle, right? Love. And when you get that validation, you know, it's almost like you're being conditioned, you know? The more I fought, the more I was praised. You know, the more reckless of an act that I committed, the more love I was given, you know? So it's almost like you're being conditioned. And I bought 100% into that lifestyle, you know what I mean? That belief system.
Yeah, you're getting love for all the wrong things.
Absolutely.
And you think it's the right thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then when you got into prison, you just started your journey and you were still trying to upkeep your reputation. And what was the thing or the moment that broke you open? Was there ever a moment that you got on your knees and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, or anything like that?
So I think it happens over time, right? In prison, we call that the aha moment. Like when you have that aha moment where your turning point comes in, right? And for me, it was more or less a accumulation of things, right? I can't peg it on one specific instance, like when my such and such died, and it made me think. Like for me, I got tired of my actions being tied to, you know, my homies. Like if I was doing the right thing and they did the wrong thing, you know, I was tied to it. I had to be involved. So being trapped in a cycle of destruction, you know, on this yard, the decisions that everybody else was making, I was tied to those decisions. I started actually looking at it. One of my homeboys had a fight, and I kind of got involved with the fight, and I ended up breaking my hand in that fight. I saw my wife at the next visit, and she looked at me and she was like, you know, baby, at what point in time do you get to put us first? And it's a simple question, and at the time I didn't really have an answer for it. I had to kind of like really sit and think like, damn, like at what point in time do I put my family first? So I think at that point I actually started looking, instead of looking and observing my social circle for my safety and my security and just, you know, just being 10 toes down, as we would call it, and just paying attention to your surrounding. I started actually looking like at the motives, you know, and actually examining my own motives too. You know, nobody involved had one another's best interests at heart. And then I also realized that I was dimming my light. I was kind of making myself small to exist in other people's shadows. So I got to a point where I was no longer kind of like suppressing those thoughts or pushing them down. I started internalizing them, and that's what made me like really start looking around like, dang, I got to do something different, you know?
And how did you have a guide, or did you have a mentor? Did you have anyone to like, or was this a self sobering moments that you had that you were like, I don't want to, I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not going to be part of that group. Or did you have people that helped inspire you into this new version of yourself?
At the time, it wasn't too many examples on the yard. It really wasn't. It was a level 4 prison at the time, not too many examples. So it was kind of like blazing a trail. I didn't even know how to navigate it at first. So the best I could come with was I needed to start putting a little distance, you know, a few degrees of separation between myself and my circle. So I remember I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start going to the law library.
Just by yourself, just
Yep, just sign up, go to the law library, start working on my case, being off the yard a little bit where I'm not so much involved. And I remember the first time I went to the law library, it was a LTA, I think their titles were, that worked in the law library. Her name was Miss Davidowski. And I kind of got myself in a little quiet corner, got my little books, and I'm kind of chilling. And I remember she tapped on the window, and everybody kind of looked up. And she was gesturing to somebody. It's my first time in there, but she's gesturing to me. So I'm like, me? She like, yeah. So I come over there. I'm like, yeah, what's going on, ma'am? She's like, would you like to work here in the law library? And I'm like, yeah, sure. She was like, well, look, sit down. I'm gonna give you an interview right now. So we did the little interview on the spot, and I got the job in the law library, right?
so cool.
So I remember being hyped up. So
That's
I go
so
back to the yard. I'm telling the homies like, hey, look, I'm not gonna be accountable on the yard so much. I got a job at the law library, and it was kind of bittersweet because I could tell they were looking at it like, Like basically, I was just a number. They were used to me being accountable for all the activities on the yard, and by me removing myself from that equation, I didn't really feel the love. So I was like, okay. But so long story short, I started working in the law library, and I think that's where it's a sobering experience, right, to work in the law library because you're dealing with all these complex legal theories and stuff, and you see men, grown men, reduced to like almost a childlike state, you know, trying to wrap their heads around it. And I kind of like, I had an uncanny little knack for the law, right? So I would see dudes over there like literally pulling at their hair trying to figure it out.
What this all means.
Exactly. So like I said, I kind of took to it. So I was able to take some of them complex theories and break it down and give it to them in a way that it makes sense to us. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Thank you. And I would say that was like my first ministry, so to speak. Like that's when I found my purpose as far as serving others. Like I was able to help a couple dudes actually, you know, get their sentence overturned and go home. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just from knowing the law and studying the law.
Yeah, knowing the law, studying the law. While I was in there, I got my paralegal's license. Then I continued on and got a few advanced paralegal certifications. And I would use that skill set to help the brothers, and it was super fulfilling. And that's kind of like, yeah, that's where I found my passion right
And
there.
that was how long ago?
That was in 2015.
So you're already almost 10 years in on this, right?
So
2015 when you started the law library.
yeah, I started the law
And
library.
you kind of had your epiphany and your change of service.
Right.
And now, where are you at now with that?
So it kind of transitioned. So it started with the law. I worked in the law library for about 5 years, right? I was assigned, I got unassigned, got reassigned, and I was given an opportunity to work in the program office as a captain's clerk. And in there, I was able to kind of rub shoulders a little bit more with the administration. As I mentioned to you, as an LWOP at the time, because I'm no longer an LWOP.
What is an LWOP?
LWOP, life without the possibility of parole. Remember what I told you, death by incarceration?
Yes.
Right. So as an LWOP, I was rubbing shoulders with the administration, and I was able to work with some of my LWOP counterparts, and we started a group, a community for the LWOPs on the yard, and it's called the LWOP Alliance Group, and it was a community of like about 40 of us at the time, and I kind of like just threw myself feet first into that, and that was like the next part of my journey.
And what is the LWOP Alliance? What do you guys do there, or what?
So the LWOP Alliance, it's almost like a self-help community. Like if you're an alcoholic, how you would go to AA, and you're gonna be in a group full of alcoholics, and you guys kind of like learn from each other's experiences. The LWOP Alliance group, we have a curriculum, and it helps you learn insight and take responsibility over your crime and things of that nature. But for me, it was more like a community. You know, it was for us, by us type situation. Like as an LWOP, you deal with a lot of the things in life that everybody else out there in the world deals with, like losing a loved one, right? But grieving in here is different than grieving out there. So I might be in here with a few of my brothers who know what it feels like to lose a mom, or know what it feels like to lose a pops, and being able to draw from their experiences and draw strength from each other.
So you said you're a former LWOP.
Now I am a former LWOP.
How does that happen?
So it can happen a number of ways. For an LWOP, pretty much if there's not a change in law, or you're not able to do some type of appeal to get your LWOP overturned, the only way that you can get your LWOP off is through the governor. It's called a commutation, right? Most people know of like a pardon, like maybe the presidential pardon or something like that, but on a state level, it happens through the governor. It's something called a commutation. And all it is, it's a little application that you fill out, and it asks you, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 questions on there. But in that 4 or 5 questions, you need to basically like put yourself on paper, put yourself and your journey on paper. And what they're looking for is extraordinary human beings, those who have kind of like learned from their circumstances, taken full accountability for their circumstances, gain insight along the way, and So I filled out an application in 2018. I didn't hear anything for 3 years. I filled out another one, yeah, in 2022. You can only do one every 3 years.
Wow.
So I filled out another one in 2021, excuse me, and just on my birthday, July 31st in 2023, I got an interview. So a board commissioner came and interviewed me, and that's a good indication that, you know, that the governor's reviewed your file and that they're considering you for a commutation, and that's what happened.
That's amazing. So now you are, what are you in now? What's it called? If you're not LWOP, you're,
So it would be called like a determinate life sentence. So now I was resentenced to 25 to life. So I have 23 years in, and you go to board a year before the 25th year. So I actually go to board January 14th. So I have an opportunity to go home.
really?
Yeah.
After that meeting or like January 14th?
So after the meeting, July 31st, I had the meeting.
Yeah, you had that meeting
And then on March 29th, on Good Friday, I got a call. The captain called me into his office and they said, you know, somebody from Sacramento's on the phone. So they told me that my sentence is, you know, been commuted. No longer you an LWOP, you're 25 to life.
Oh my gosh.
And I literally broke down.
This is amazing. How was that day for you?
I broke down. Like it was so surreal. Like I had some of my brothers in the room with me that day, and yeah, I just all the weight that I had, it was like feeling like the weight of the world being lifted from my shoulders, and all I could do was I just broke down. I broke down.
You broke down, and it's because of the work that you've done on yourself, the hard work that you've done, and the dedication that you've had to yourself and bettering yourself. So it's something that you deserve and that you earned, you know?
Yeah, I would say the second part. I would say it's something that I earned. You know, I was part of a crime where someone lost their life, so I believe that I got what I deserved, which was my sentence. But I feel like I did everything that I could to earn an opportunity, you know, to be redeemed in the eyes of the rest of society, and I got that moment.
And for people that are hopeless, you know, they just enter the system or they're also in gangs and things like that, what would you say to them? Or for that little boy that was you when you were 16 years old? Are there many out there right now in gangs? Like, what would you say to them?
Well, for those who are in gangs, I think that's a different situation than the hopeless, right? So I would speak to the boy that I was back then. I would tell him, first and foremost, I would tell him, you go a long way in life just being yourself. You know, it's so easy to look outside of yourself for validation for whatever reason, for whatever you're going through. You might be going through circumstances inside the house. You might have financial insecurities or whatever it might be, right? So it's so easy to find external validation. It's easy to find that. It's harder to be yourself. But in life, like you go much further just being yourself. So that's the first thing that I would tell them. Yeah, just be true to yourself. And in terms of coming into the system and being lost and being hopeless, I would say it's a hard thing to do, but the first thing that you have to do is just kind of like accept your circumstances, you know? Yeah, be accountable and accept it. Like for me, it was accepting the fact that there was a potential that I would die in prison, right? I had accepted that fact. So now it was about what am I going to do with the rest of my life within my circumstances? And you have to become selfless. Like
Surrender.
I would tell an individual who was in the shoes that I was in, like the pathway to freedom is serving others. Like you find internal freedom down the pathway of service. And like if you get lost in helping other individuals and lost in others' lives, then ultimately somehow it's like the gravitational pull or whatever, it just ultimately comes back to you.
Yeah, you pay it forward and it comes back tenfold.
Absolutely.
And I'm just curious, you got married in prison?
I did.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that works? Like, how did you find a wife?
Yeah. So my wife, Sharon May, I actually met her as high school. So we were kind of like acquaintances, but she had came back into my world in 2010. So it started just, phone calls and stuff like that. And then, as things deepened, our relationship deepened in 2013. I asked her to be my wife, and there's actually a process where you get with the county that you're in and get a marriage license and stuff like that, and they do the actual ceremony inside the visiting room. So on July 5th, 2014, we got married. So I've been married for 10 years.
And what made you want to get married? What to you is the importance of having a wife?
Companionship. At first, I was kind of against the idea. For one, I didn't feel like there was a woman out there in the world that would be able to. I didn't want a jailhouse relationship, so to speak, where, okay, you do whatever you do out there in the streets just as long as you hold me down. I wasn't interested in that. I wanted real companionship, real friendship. And as an LWAP, I kind of felt like it would be selfish, like I would be an anchor, tying her to an anchor and holding her down. And it was actually her asking me the questions like, well, what about what I want? You know what I mean? Like, if you're my person, then I can go out here and have another person in the world. But if you're the person that was intended for me, then your circumstances really don't matter. And nah, it was real. Yeah, I got a real one. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it was beautiful. So that companionship, that friendship, we've been building it over time. And it's probably one of the best and most transformative things that's ever happened to me.
And how has it transformed you the most?
I believe I saw my true potential in her eyes, like being reflected back in me. She saw in me that were things I didn't even see in myself at the time, So for a while there, I was striving up to the person that she saw when she looked at me. And then once I started actually stepping into myself, I kind of like learned how capable of an individual I actually was. And so I saw my true potential in her.
Like she was a reflection of who you could be.
Yeah.
She challenged you in a way that made you want to get better and be a better man and step into that role.
Yeah, she absolutely, yeah, she did.
That's so beautiful. And you're going to see her soon.
Yeah, I see her all the time.
But like you're going to get out soon.
Oh yeah, I'm going to see her different. Yeah.
So it's going to be amazing. So what are you most excited about when you get out? What would you do? What were some of the first things that you would do?
I think I'm just most excited about the freedom to not be in a restricted space in this environment where I'm being told when and how I can interact. Like just being able to finally let my guard down and just us be together. You know what I mean? Like just I don't know if that makes any sense. Anytime that we get an opportunity to come together, it's in a controlled environment. It's always surveilled. People are always looking for the worst sides of human beings to be, stepping outside the line. We're supposed to be between the lines, stepping outside the lines and doing things that we're not supposed to do, right? So just having that freedom for us to be able to like really grow together, chase our dreams together, our goals, the things that we aspire to.
And what are some of your dreams?
Well, some of my dreams at this point, I would say goals, because
goals, because they're gonna happen.
Goal, yeah. A goal is what a dream with a plan.
Yes.
So my goals, I want to get out there and work with the Reintegration Academy. So that's a guy named Dr. Renford Reese, Cal Poly Pomona professor, and he creates opportunities for formerly incarcerated people, which I will be a formerly incarcerated person at that point. And I want to come back into these environments and create opportunities for people who were in the situations that I was in,
And lastly, you seem really at peace. Like even though there's a lot more coming in, there's a lot that you've been through, how do you maintain your peace in a place like this?
That's a good question. I maintain my peace by maximizing the things that I have control over and then surrendering the things that I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there's only so many things that are within my control. Those things that are within my control, I try to maximize them. Anything outside of that, I'm going to give it to God. Mm-hmm. That's how I keep my peace.
And lastly, what are some things that you would like to see brought in here or change that could help the people, in prison?
It's a difficult environment to bring things to prison that can make an individual, like, feel free, drop their guards, but anything that can return a person to like almost like that childlike state. That's why it's kind of dope what they're doing with Between the Lines basketball, right? Because it's a game that we all grew up playing as kids, right? A lot of times we get so caught up in this identity that we create for ourselves that we forget who we were before we became that identity. You know, I told you before I got involved with the gangs, so I was a Crip. My favorite color was blue because I aspired to be a Crip. But I couldn't really remember like what was my favorite color before I aspired down that path, right? So anytime that you can bring something in that can bring somebody back to that childlike state, that's where we need to get back to in order to start moving forward and stepping into who we truly need to be. So yeah, anything that can...
The innocence, the purity.
Absolutely.
That love can grow and it can be abundant.
Yeah.
And lastly, I mean, you're such an impressive man. You have, I mean, you have a great character, and I know you worked hard to get it. What are you most proud of yourself today, the man that you are?
Today, I'm most proud of my change, my recovery. It took me a long time to get on this pathway that I'm on, right? It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of overcoming people's opinions, you know. That peer pressure is crazy, right? You know, wanting to be accepted, to be able to step out and stand on my own too as a man, as an individual. So at this point, I'm a whole and healthy man, and that's something that, you know, you can't buy, can't replicate it, can't duplicate it. It's something that you actually have to go to you know, through the process to become that. I'm proud of being a father and a husband, and those things mean the world to me. The relationships that I've been able to create with my family, you know, at one point in time, my relationships were kind of volatile, but now I have strong bonds with my family, and those are like some of the most important things to me.
Well, thank you, Brett, so much for your time, for your inspiration, for your story, and I know it's going to impact so many people who get the chance to watch this and get to know you and the incredible man that you are.
Thank you.
So thank you. Let's go out there and have some fun.
On the real.
So
All right, you have a good one.
Brett.
Thank you.